Let's talk about a big problem that I often see in the mental health world. So often when it comes to evaluating patients and kind of doing intakes and kind of assessing what's going on, it's very much a symptom driven standpoint. We're looking for what are the symptoms, what are the criteria those symptoms fall into, what are the diagnoses for these patients, and kind of looking at this very symptom diagnosis framework. Now, I'm not going to say that's inherently a bad thing because sometimes that can at least give us some ideas, places to operate from. If a patient seems to generally have OCD like behaviors, that might give us kind of a general framework that we can start to approach this. But the reality is that from the beginning, the DSM, the diagnostic manual, it was meant for inside baseball. It was meant for practitioners to have a common language to be able to talk about these things. It wasn't really meant for something for the whole public to kind of take on, or even people to take on as like identities. They're just descriptors of behaviors and of symptoms. And obviously the insurance companies, that's a whole nother conversation. They really proliferated the use of these diagnoses. Now, again, I'm not inherently saying they're ridiculous or absurd. We just have to be really considerate that we're not falling into this trap of symptoms because we're treating people, we're treating individuals, we're not treating symptoms. The way that I like to approach it is, I don't know, what you might call like the narrative or story model. It's this idea of just getting the narrative. What's the story? Every individual, their life plays out like a story, right? You could sit down with a friend, with a family member. If you ever sat down with a grandparent, you're like, "Hey, tell me your story," right? And they're gonna hit on these important pieces. They're gonna tell you about events from their childhood. They're gonna tell you about maybe pivotal moments, moments, positive or negative. If you were to sit down and read a book, you could read that. You could read about that information, and then if you have you're attentive to it and you have the mind for it, you can start to pick out those pivotal moments and those pivotal pieces. Oh, this experience that you had as a child, I can understand how that might make you feel a certain way. Maybe that contributes a little bit to some of the things that are going on right now, right? Our lives are stories, and the way that this story plays out has an effect on us because it has an effect on our perceptions of ourselves in the world around us. And that has a deep and profound impact on our mental health. If I had experiences as a child that made me feel not listened to, not heard, that's going to draw onto my assumptions of myself, the way that I operate. Maybe I don't feel like I'm that type of person. So if I feel unheard, I get mad. Maybe I get angry. Or maybe I shut down. I emotionally shut down. That matters so much in our daily life and in our relationships. So as a provider, it's really important for me that I understand this narrative. What is your story? And really journey and understand how can I start to pull these things out for this person. Now, from the way that I practice is generally coming from this under the medical model, right? So the way that I see it is I'm addressing the physiological aspect of whatever's going on, but with the understanding that this physiology is in response to the narrative. It's in response to experience. And even if there is an underlying physical reason, that narrative matters. Here's what I mean by that. If you are an individual who maybe is born with a slightly higher propensity for feeling anxious, right? You can kind of easily get, triggered, so to speak, or anxious. Your system kind of reacts more heavily. There's the feeling itself, and then there's also the way that I interpret that, the way that I understand my anxiety, the way that maybe that was taught to me or related to me, and that's going to dictate how do I deal with this. So even if there is that physiological element, and maybe it's something that in some cases does have to be addressed with medications because it's so intense and overwhelming, we still need to move that patient to a deeper understanding, because what we want to separate is the narrative from the feeling, from the sensation that they're having. We want to change the narrative, and we can do that, right? We can change what that story says. So again, this is kind of something that I like to keep in mind, and I think it's really important as clinicians that we try to approach things from this, I guess, what I would call it like a narrative or story model, of trying to understand from a wider, deeper human perspective versus just symptoms. If that resonates with you, I'd like to hear more in the comments. What is your experience? Have you met with a provider? Do you feel like it was very symptom based? Have you had good experiences with the provider? Tell me more. Also, like and subscribe to this if you want to hear more or get these videos. That would be awesome. For those that are living in Idaho, I'd be happy to see you and get your story. Please visit my website at sparrowmentalhealth.com. You can find information there. Thank you so much.